Overdose can and must be prevented. That's the message from people here in Connecticut and around the world. Hi everyone, I'm Bridget Bureau and thank you for joining us in Fox 61 Plus for Take Action, an overdose awareness special. Fox 61 teamed up with the Governor's Prevention Partnership to talk about the impact overdose has had on our state. Over the next half hour, you'll hear from people whose loved ones died from the overdose and what they're doing now to help others who are dealing with grief. We will also sit down with a former NFL player about his fight with addiction, and we'll hear from the organizations in Connecticut that are working to prevent overdose. So first, let's take a look at where Connecticut stands in the battle against the opioid crisis. There is progress. So far this year, there's been a drop in deadly overdoses reported. Through the first 5 months of this year, the state confirmed 369 accidental drug overdose deaths. That's down 85 from the first 5 months of last year, a full 20% drop, and even more of a decline from that same time period the 2 years before that. Now, to be clear, these numbers aren't dropping because of the number of overdoses themselves are dropping. It's more so that people who are overdosing aren't dying as frequently, and non-deadly overdoses actually went up by nearly 40%. A new Yukon study sheds light on why this is happening. It highlights links between opioid dependence, alcohol use disorder, mental health issues, and even homelessness. Researchers say nearly half of participants had overdosed before. Many also face suicide risk, domestic violence, and barriers to addiction treatment, despite access to smartphones and telehealth options. Experts are calling for targeted, tech-driven interventions and improved support networks to not just save lives, but rebuild them as well. One of the resources in our state is the Governor's Prevention Partnership. They work to protect Connecticut's young people from drugs and alcohol for more than 30 years. Fox 61's Erica Arias learned more about the organization and its work to fight overdose.
So I'm here with the Governor's Prevention Partnership co-president Kelly Juleson and Justin Mell, the opioid services coordinator for the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So first, let's talk about what this day is all about and why it's so important, Justin.
Yeah, Erica, really it's the world's largest campaign to end overdoses. And it's a call to action for people. It's a reminder that overdoses are preventable. And it's also a way to really stand with these families who are suffering and grieving right now and wrap our arms around them. In Connecticut on the 31st and really all that weekend, you're going to see vigils, you're going to see community events where people are there to remember their loved ones and to also spread the message that these overdoses are preventable. And this is especially important in Connecticut because we lost 989 people last year.
That number is so incredible. Talk a little bit more about the landscape of opioid use and addiction and how that's changed.
Yeah, I think most of our viewers here would know that really in the past decade or so, heroin's been phased out of the drug supply. And what we're seeing is this synthetic analog called fentanyl, which is causing a lot of overdoses. On top of that, they're putting this fentanyl into pressed pills that look just like stuff you would get at the pharmacy.
Right.
And you can't tell the difference, and it can be incredibly dangerous to use those medications unless they come directly from a pharmacy. On top of that, they add these extra adulterants to the supply that really just complicate everything, veterinary tranquilizers and things like that. And I think we want to point out, too, that most of these overdoses happen at home. Almost 71% are happening at home. So this isn't something that's just kind of happening out in the streets. It's right in our private residences. And what's really heartbreaking is more than half the time, there's someone in the home that could have potentially intervened had there been a conversation, and then they're left finding their loved one.
Talking about intervening, let's shift over to prevention. Kelly, you work a lot with prevention specifically for young people. That's your main focus.
Absolutely, and what Justin just shared is scary.
Yeah.
And so as a parent, I'm always wearing that hat as the mom of 2 young children, is what can we do? And the reality is there's some very simple things that we can do on an everyday basis. Have conversations with the young people in your life around the dangers of drugs and alcohol. This statistic I find so staggering that a young person whose parent talks to them about the dangers of drugs and alcohol is actually 50% less likely to use than their peers. So don't be afraid of that. If you need information, you can come to us at gppct.org. We can help guide you through some of those conversations, and they can start small by building that connection. Who did you have lunch with today? And build up to these bigger things. The other really important thing in this is to safely store and dispose dispose of your medication.
Right.
Because oftentimes people are starting in their own medicine cabinets or from someone that they know.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. A lot of people have medical procedures done. I had a hip surgery this past year, and you get sent home with multiple bottles of drugs, and so a lot of times you're not using it all. And what you do after that is really important as a parent in your house.
Absolutely, and you need to safely dispose. That doesn't mean throw them in the trash, flush them down the toilet because then it gets into our water supply, or keep them for that rainy day.
Right.
You need to dispose of them with an at-home disposal pouch, take them to your police station if they have a year-round drop box or another location near you where they may have that and they can be safely disposed of, because they do present a lot of risk from a public health perspective, but also an environmental perspective.
Right, that's an important thing to keep in mind. So just quickly recap the event that's happening on Sunday.
Yeah, so there's events throughout the entire community happening Sunday, really starting Thursday throughout the weekend. It's a place to go and even learn about naloxone, which I'd like the viewers at home to know that that's the first thing they can do. Just normalize putting that as part of your first aid kit, because naloxone is the best tool that we have to really extend people's lives and help move forward out of this public health crisis.
All right, Justin, Kelly, thanks so much for being
Thanks,
here
Erica.
and all your efforts to hopefully end this crisis.
Thank you.
Soon.
Thank you, Erica. One of the ways you can safely dispose of medications is with a drug deactivation bag. Erica got a look at how it works and where you can get one for free.
Preventing substance use is not easy, but even the smallest steps can yield the biggest return. So joining me once again in Studio 61 from the Governor's Prevention Partnership, Co-President Kelly Jullison. Thanks for sticking around and showing us how this bag works. It's so important.
It's so important, and it's something that we can all do, and you can actually request these bags directly from us at gppct.org for free. So all you have to do is tear off the top. You would take your old medication, so whether it's pills, even your pet's medication, this pouch will actually deactivate up to 45 pills. I'm not going to put that many in there because I'm also going to add some liquid too.
Right.
So
I didn't realize you could mix them.
Yes, you can mix them. So it's either 45 pills or 6 ounces of liquid, or you could do a little math and figure out how you can divide them both. You're going to add some just regular water.
Okay.
It's immediately going to start a process in here. You can kind of hear it sizzle. It's an adsorption process, so there's activated carbon.
Okay.
And then you're going to seal it and you're going to throw it in the household trash. And once you do that, you don't need to worry that someone's going to
So it's just
improperly
completely
use it.
deactivated.
Exactly. And so it's not just for people, it's also for pets too. If you're just putting those things in the trash, they continue to present a risk.
And these are so important because the main thing that we want to get out is just not even starting, not even trying. If you have kids, sometimes they see some medication laying around the house in the medicine cabinet. They might be, interested in sort of trying it.
Absolutely, and we know that
we don't want
2/3
that.
people actually start, if they're going to misuse prescription drugs, they start in their own home or someone they know.
And what do we do as parents if we maybe notice that maybe medication is a little bit low?
Have conversations with your children, really open up the dialogue. We heard earlier from Justin just those counterfeit pills, how dangerous that they are. And so they look exactly the same as what you would be prescribed. So start the conversations, open up those dialogues. You certainly want to really be doing it before too, but
Right.
make sure that you're locking up your medication that you do have in the home as well, so you don't have to worry about that moving forward for whatever you do need to keep in the home.
And how often should we be going through our medicine cabinets, like on a regular basis, just kind of like spring cleaning?
Yes, you should be doing it early and often. Things are constantly expiring, so you want to be disposing of them. So I think as often as you can, there's those 2 times a year take-back events that the DEA runs. Your local pharmacy may have a regular take-back location, or your police station, but do it as regularly as you can. That's why we wanted to provide those, so it gives people an opportunity and a choice and something easy to do when they're ready to dispose.
And how do people get a hold of the bags?
You can reach out to us directly at gppct.org, and we can send them to you. At home, we're also about to start a major mail campaign for 50,000 pouches to go out through the opioid settlement dollars over the fall. And so those will be going directly to houses in Connecticut.
And those don't cost anything.
No,
Those are completely free.
completely free.
Oh, that's good to know. And great resource for people to, use.
Yes, absolutely.
Just dispose of it.
Just
It's the best
dispose,
thing.
don't
It's the
save.
safest thing. Exactly. Don't keep it around because you think, oh, I might need that later.
Yeah.
All right. Kelly, thanks so much. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Erica. I
it. Really
appreciate it.
important information. Appreciate your time.
As we've talked about, overdose can have a big impact on families. A Connecticut father, Peter Tashonas, lost his son Nick to overdose. He used that pain to start the nonprofit In the Nick of Time to share resources with other parents. Now, you created this Nick of Time Foundation in honor of your son, Nick, who passed away from a drug overdose at 24 years old. Tell me a little bit about him and why you wanted to carry on his legacy.
Sure. Nick, when he was young, he was one of those kids who everybody loved. The coaches, the teachers, the parents, followed all the rules, was just very kind and thoughtful and intelligent. And as he grew into his teens, he started to battle depression. And depression was followed with casual teenage alcohol and drug use that unfortunately a lot of youth enter into. Eventually, since it was difficult to treat the depression and get relief, started to self-medicate a little bit more to try to feel normal and feel better at times. And eventually, later on, that turned into addiction. Fortunately, Nick chose to seek treatment on his own and was doing a great job. Came home for a long weekend after being away about 4.5 months, had a brief relapse, and fentanyl was involved, and we lost him at 24 years old.
I'm so sorry. But now you're using your experience for good, putting purpose into your pain, and you're trying to help others. What kind of work does your organization do to potentially save lives?
Sure. In the Nick of Time, we really formed it for a specific reason, because when Nick passed away, it was very difficult to move forward without him. So we had to figure out a way to move forward with him. And one of the things we're doing is really kind of carrying on his legacy. When he was away in treatment, we heard a lot of great stories about Nick, excuse me, helping others. And he really was the one who was trying to get others to open up. So we thought, let's form an organization around education and awareness, make young folks, young adults, teenagers, and especially in my case, parents, aware of what's happening out there, and to understand that it's okay to put your hand up and say, I need help.
And one of the things you do, you go around schools across Connecticut, bringing that awareness, educating kids, especially about the dangers of fentanyl. We talk about the One Pill Can Kill campaign. Oftentimes, students are experimenting with drugs they think is recreational, think it's safe, and then they make a deadly choice. What other message are you spreading to these kids?
So for the kids, I think the biggest thing is you need to make yourself aware of what's out there too, because there could be a moment where you have a drink, where you're at a party and you feel social or peer pressure to partake in take a pill or do something that maybe you wouldn't otherwise. You really have to understand what that means and what that can lead to.
Absolutely. What do you want parents to know? What is something you wish you had known prior to Nick's passing?
I think that's been probably the most difficult part of all this, is right after he passed, is really the self-reflection. And I think the thing that I want parents to know more than anything is educate yourself to what's going on with your child. Understand who they're spending time with, understanding the activities they're involved with. Understand that in my case with Nick, he had depression. I thought I understood it for the most part, but I had no idea. And what really happened there is I thought, well, maybe he'll grow out of it, or maybe we'll be able to find him some help. But when you can't and it snowballs, you're not ready for that. And it's the same thing with drug use and what's available and what's out there, and understanding really that anything out there on the street is tainted with fentanyl. Vast majority of things will be. And so you have to understand, what would you do if that occurred? Do you have Narcan in your home? Do you have a group of parents whose kids hang out together and they have sleepovers? Do all the parents have a plan together? What would they do if anything happens? Now, most times nothing, you'll be okay, and that won't happen. But if it occurs in your home, what would you do?
And fentanyl 100 times more potent than morphine. A lot of people need to remember that. Such an important message, such important work you do, Peter, Tashanis. Thank you very much for the Nick of Time organization, and we'll be following the work you do. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Another family who shared their loved one's story was Yasmin and her daughter, Amber Lee. They lost their son and brother. Amber Lee is now a part of the Governor's Prevention Partnership's Youth Advisory Board to help others like her. We are talking about all week long. We've been previewing International Overdose Awareness. So joining me now, we have some very special guests to talk about it. We have Yasmin and her daughter, Amberly. And both of you lost someone really special in your life. You lost a brother, you lost a son, and now you continue the work and you raise awareness to save lives and prevent what happened to your son and brother from happening to another family. So what do you want people to know about drug overdoses and what they can do to prevent it?
I think one of the most important things is that it's never just addiction, right? There's always going to be something underlying it, a mental health issue, especially now with the Gen Z loneliness epidemic. People are feeling more alone than ever, and people are feeling as if they need this form of escapism. And sometimes the easiest way to find that is through substances. And I think approaching that with that knowledge, right, being educated that there's always something more to it, will help, make the conversation a little bit more open, because I think there's oftentimes this stigma where it should be the shameful thing, right? You're addicted to something that's not, favorable naturally. However, I think it's important to understand that this is something that anyone can go through. From me, my mother, it could happen to anyone truly. So understanding what it is, and approaching every situation with empathy, and every conversation with empathy, and ensuring that the conversation around it, isn't shameful but supportive. I think that's something that's very important.
No judgment. We really want to try to reduce the stigma and have those conversations early and often. Yasmin, I want to hear more about your son, Xavier. I know it happened recently. He passed away a little over a year ago at the age of 30 on his birthday. Tell me about who he was.
Xavier was an amazing boy. I still call him a boy. He had just turned 30, and he was actually a very kind, caring, smiled at little room. He was a father to a little boy who has Down syndrome, and he's also on the spectrum. He was just a loving person. He was my boy. So.
And now you're carrying on his legacy and educating other families to spare them a similar pain. You're part of the Governor's Prevention Partnership, Youth Advisory Board, and Amberly, you speak on behalf of that board. What message do you send to other families, and why is it so powerful?
I think a lot of the times I want to share the fact that it starts at prevention, and it always starts at the root of the problem. Nowadays, as a teenager, I see that, addiction is approached with such disdain, and there's kind of like this hostility towards it. So I try my best to get the message out there. And also, I think it's so important the fact that I'm a teenager. Yeah. So I understand the struggle as a teenager, and also by seeing what my brother went through. So giving youth a voice and making sure that youth know that you can speak, right? You have a voice, because people, if I'm doing it, then you can as well.
Yasmin, is there one thing you wish you knew that you didn't, that you want other parents to know?
I think it's just having those open communication with the parents, with the children. I think knowing about the types of drugs that are out there, the fact that they can be laced with anything, a little bit of fentanyl, yes, right?
Can be deadly.
In this case, could be deadly, exactly. So it's just knowing that it's out there, it's knowing that it can happen to any family, is having those conversations with your children, and being open and allowing them to tell you, hey mom, hey dad, this is happening in my life, and for us to be able to listen to them and hear them out.
It's such an important message, and I'm so glad and grateful you're here to share it with us today, and I'm sure your son and your brother will be very proud. Xavier, may his memory always be a blessing. Thank you very much. One part of overdose prevention is to work with people who are dealing with drug addiction. I sat down with the Governor's Prevention Partnership and a former NFL player about the resources available to treat addiction. Joining me now on the couch is Governor's Prevention Partnership co-president Kelly Julson and former NFL player Ryan Leaf. He's also president and CEO at Ramp Consultant and Production. So good morning to you both, and thanks so much for being here. Ryan, let's start with you, because a lot of us know you as a former professional football player. You were second overall in the draft in 1998, right behind Peyton Manning.
Who?
Who's that guy? But you're also a survivor of drug addiction. So tell us what happened and how you were able to come to the other side.
Well, I think it's an affliction that affects so many Americans, and mine just was in a very public platform, I think. And so I was forced to address it in a public way, and it probably saved my life because there's a lot of us that are going through what I went through, but they're doing it in the shadows, and they never get the light shined on them, and the consequences were kind of thrust upon me to either figure it out and try to become purposeful and help somebody, or fall to the wayside. And so I'm really grateful for all the government agencies, especially the Sheriff's Department in my home state of Montana, for helping to save my life.
Yeah, and Kelly, his is a great example of a story that so many people experience, especially athletes, whether it's painkillers, whether it's steroids. A lot of people fall into addiction. So what resources are out there, and why should there be more in professional sports and sports in general?
Well, we need more resources, especially when it comes to prevention, harm reduction, and treatment. And it's great to have Ryan here and share his story. We know too many people's lives were lost. Last year in Connecticut, it was almost 1,000 lives were lost through unintentional overdose. And so more needs to be done. People, please reach out if you need help. Call. There is a state number that is available, or if you're interested in youth prevention, you can come to us at gppct.org, and we can start small. Just having conversations with the young people in your life around the dangers of drugs and alcohol can be really beneficial and can make a difference so that they don't end up on a path of substance use disorder.
Ryan, what was key to your recovery? I mean, congratulations on being sober for so long, but what was key to it? I'd imagine you had a lot of support around you.
Well, it happened in prison, really. A roommate of mine, he was an Afghan-Iraqi war veteran, and he had was fed up with my attitude of kind of being a victim and all these things. So he convinced me to go down to the prison library and help prisoners who didn't know how to read, learn how to read. And so it was something as simple as that. And then when I got out, whenever any kind of conflict happened or things started to build up in the same direction, I just started to do the things that I did in there, and I made it about other people. And I started going to the homeless shelter and the soup kitchen in my home state, my hometown. And I really didn't do anything. I mostly just listened. And these disenfranchised or people who are going through things that many of us don't fully understand, a lot of times they don't feel seen or heard. And so all I really did was I made eye contact with them and I listened to them. And when you make it about other people, your life gets better. And I didn't know that was actually the case. I thought as a narcissist growing up playing sports that for my life to get better, everything had to be about me, what you could do for me and things like that. But that's not the case. And so for the last 11 years, it's just been, let's make it about somebody else. Let's try to make their life purposeful, and that usually makes my life better and makes me a better father and a better partner and all of that. And
your survival story gave you a new purpose in your own life. You ever imagine your life taking a turn in this way? No. I mean, 11 years ago when I walked out of a prison cell, there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing there for me. No job, no purpose. There was hope because of the things that I did in there, and I've just built on that hope. And I have 2 kids. I live in Connecticut. We've been here for about 3 years. We love the community. And this last year, meeting Kelly and the GPP here with the governor's office, I just simply said, what more can I do for my community? Because Connecticut has just welcomed us in as a family. And so I wanted to be able to give back in a way that was going to be purposeful. And this was a wonderful opportunity. And it's a small state, which I think is really great because everybody seems to know one another, and that makes for a real community. Well, you've given hope to a lot of people, and just being the face of this and letting people know that they're not alone and they can get to the other side is so key. So thank you so much for coming on, and we're definitely going to check out all the resources available at your organization. To commemorate International Overdose Awareness Day, the Roots Center for Advanced Recovery opened its memorial garden to honor those who lost their battle to addiction and to encourage those fighting it. Fox 61's Jim Altman has more from Manchester.
It happens every year, this somber ceremony in Manchester, which is all about overdose awareness. And that's where the Roots Center comes in. A back lot in Manchester transformed.
Everything is in full bloom.
And now it serves as the forefront to transform lives.
Today is about honoring the lives lost and also recognizing those who are still very much in the fight.
Notes placed in a wall, and the power of purple. in their memorial garden.
They've left messages, they've left mementos.
This is the Root Center's annual Overdose Awareness Remembrance Ceremony.
The Root Center is a mental health and addiction nonprofit. We have been in Connecticut since 1871, so over 150 years of celebrating folks, helping them find recovery and helping them find a life that is sustainable.
While overdose deaths are down 26% statewide in the past year,
This is supposed to be something that's more of a cathartic release.
Root Center Chief of Staff Margot Farrell says the day is dedicated to lowering those numbers and raising visibility.
This year, for the first year, in several years actually, we saw the numbers come down for overdose deaths. And while that is a trend in the right direction, it's still almost 930 families that lost loved ones. And these deaths, they are 100% preventable.
With the help of the Root Center, 31-year-old Taylor Micolite continues his fight.
It was fentanyl and crack cocaine.
Taylor addressed the crowd as a guest speaker.
And I'm truly blessed to still be here today.
I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to be speaking about overdose awareness. If you really, really want it, you'll do it. You have to really want it for yourself.
A new tradition, the burning of the memorial notes. The ashes of those honored meant to leave an indelible message.
I would want somebody to know that there's always hope at all times. There's people out on the front lines who are always looking to support you in any way, shape, or form that we can.
Most importantly, remember that you are not alone.
We have to keep fighting. We have to keep spreading awareness.
Let hope win.
And the Root Center continues to build its footprint. They now have 14 different locations. In Manchester, Jim Altman, Fox 61.
Thanks, Jimmy. We want to give a special thanks now to the families who shared their stories with us and to the Governor's Prevention Partnership. For more information on the resources we've mentioned, head to gppct.org.